Hello everyone, my name is Virgil Breeden. I am a graduate student in the Music Technology program at Georgia Tech, and today I'll be talking about a study where we ask the question, how long does it take a trained dancer to associate a given song with a dance genre? Specifically, our study focused on trained partner dancers with a focus on ballroom, country, and swing. To start things off, let's look at what motivated this study in the first place. Starting with the ballroom community, it's not uncommon for beginning dancers to struggle when trying to associate a dance with a given song, and they will often ask more experienced dancers, "What do I dance to this?" This, of course, could be for a few reasons, the most common of which is they haven't been exposed to a dance that is associated with whatever song is being played at the moment. Over time, though, as a dancer learns more dances and is exposed to more music associated with each of those dances, the amount of time to make those song and dance associations lessens. The question remains, though, how long does that association take? And that leads us to the research that also helped motivate this study. In 2008, Drs. Yerdigan and Perot found that listeners could identify a musical genre in as little as 250 milliseconds. Dr. Mace et al. Went one step further and found that when listeners are exposed to music they prefer, that they can identify a musical genre in as little as 125 milliseconds. Dr. Krumhansel found that listeners could identify a song's artist and title in 400 milliseconds and could make consistent emotion and style judgments in as little as 300 milliseconds. And lastly, Drs. Plazak and Huron found that identification of musical features happens in the first 3 seconds of exposure. Before we discuss the hypotheses we tested, there is one more topic we need to discuss. In the ballroom community, it is common for some songs to be majoritively associated with one dance genre, while other songs are associated with multiple dance genres. This is, of course, on a song-by-song basis. For this study, songs that are associated with a single dance genre are labeled monolithic, and songs that are associated with multiple dance genres are labeled polylithic. As an example of monolithic songs, we can look at the waltz. The waltz primarily uses patterns that are grouped in multiples of 3 steps per pattern and is performed to music written in 3/4 time, or 3 beats per measure. Consequently, the waltz also gives us a good litmus test to make sure our study is on the right track. For polylithic songs, a good example is Read All About It Part 3 by Emily Sandé. This particular song is associated with foxtrot, rumba, tango, and West Coast swing. Given all of this, we arrived at 2 hypotheses. Our first hypothesis was that dancers require a minimum of 1 measure of music to reach consensus when classifying the dance genre that a song is associated with. Our second hypothesis was that dancers will reach a greater degree of consensus when classifying the dance genre of monolithic songs compared to polylithic songs. To test these hypotheses, we first needed music to present to dancers, and we obtained that music from the Dancers' Music Dataset. This is a dataset we created by recording song data from every playlist on Spotify that was associated with exactly one of the dance genres of interest. And the dance genres we collected data for are cha-cha, country two-step, East Coast swing, foxtrot, rumba, tango, waltz, and West Coast swing. For example, all of the songs on the playlist Ballroom Cha-Cha-Cha were recorded and associated with the cha-cha. But none of the songs on the playlist Rumba Cha-Cha Paso Tango were recorded because we don't have a way to algorithmically determine which song in the playlist is associated with which dance genre. In addition to recording data about each song in the playlists, we also recorded the number of playlists for each dance genre that the songs appeared in. We call this quantity song prevalence. From here we made the assumption that the more prevalent a song is across the playlists for a dance genre, the more representative it is of that dance genre. Further, if a song only appeared on playlists for a single dance genre, it was categorized as monolithic, and if it appeared on playlists for multiple dance genres, it was categorized as polylithic. With this data in hand, we selected the 2 most prevalent monolithic songs and the 2 most prevalent polylithic songs for each dance genre. With the exception of the waltz, as those songs only exist in the monolithic data, giving us a total of 30 songs in this study. We then used those songs to generate audio clips that were 1 beat, 2 beats, 1 bar, 2 bars, and 4 bars long. We arranged the clips into 5 blocks using a gating paradigm so that listeners would be exposed to each of the 1-beat selections first, followed by 2-beat selections, and so on. Each of the 8 dance genres were represented. 2 songs per dance genre for each of the monolithic and polylithic categories were chosen, and each participant was exposed to all of the stimuli. This gave us a 2x5 by 8x2 within subjects design that presented participants with a total of 150 stimuli. Participants were tasked with selecting one dance genre for the 8 available options for each clip using an alternative forced choice format. This format was chosen because it mimics the real-world scenario of a social dance setting where you hear a song, decide what dance is the best fit, and then you ask someone to dance and make your way to the dance floor. In all, 209 individuals from the dance community volunteered to participate in the study. However, this number was pared down to 79 participants. The reasons for this are that some volunteers were minors, others were EU residents and we did not have a proper GDPR consent form in place, and a few volunteers were having trouble interfacing with the surveying software on their devices. In the end, 79 volunteers were both eligible and their devices worked with the surveying software. So that we can add a little more context, this is what each question that was presented to participants looked like. In each case, they would be able to listen to each audio clip exactly once before answering the question. This decision was made to encourage participants to go with their first instinct rather than playing a clip multiple times and second-guessing themselves. Here are a couple of examples of the clips presented to participants. The first example is a monolithic cha-cha from the one-beat condition. Here is the same clip, but from the 2-bar condition. We should note here that we did not ask participants after each question if they recognized the song. In retrospect, this would have been a valuable data point since our clips are above the minimum threshold for artist and title recognition and may have affected how quickly a participant could associate a song with the dance genre. With all of that said, let's move on to the analysis. Analysis of participant responses was accomplished in 3 steps. We first calculated the entropy of the distribution of participant responses for each stimulus to obtain a score that was representative of the consensus among participants for that clip. With the entropy calculated, we fit a linear mixed effects model with entropy as the outcome variable, with fixed effects for category, dance genre, beat condition, their 3-way interaction, and a random slope to account for song-specific effects, since the same song was heard in multiple conditions. We found that the length of a clip, measured in beats, did have a significant effect on the degree of consensus when determining which dance genre a clip is associated with. Looking further into this, we performed a Helmholtz contrast and found that even though the difference between each beat condition starts to taper off at the 1-bar condition, each beat condition was significantly different from each of the others. For clarity, a lower entropy correlates with a higher degree of consensus. In other words, if all of the participants hear a clip and agree on which dance genre it is associated with, then we end up with a minimum entropy. However, if their responses are evenly spread across all of the dance genres, then we get a maximum entropy. While this result is consistent with our first hypothesis, we don't see a noticeable ceiling effect at the 1-bar condition that we were expecting. Instead, we see consensus between dancers continuing to grow even at the 4-bar condition. We also hypothesized that songs categorized into the monolithic category would possess features that made them easier to classify than songs in the polylithic category, resulting in significantly more consensus between participants. To our surprise, the model developed for this study did not support our hypothesis with a reported p-value of 0.28965. And if we look at the comparison of entropies for each dance genre, we see the results are all over the place. For tango, we see a noticeably higher entropy for polylithic songs, but for country two-step, we see a lower entropy. In the other genres, we see less extreme differentiations between the categories. Lastly, since monolithic songs are associated with only one dance genre, we were able to measure the consensus between participants and the monolithic data at each beat condition. What we noticed is that even at the 1-beat condition, participants are performing at a greater than chance level when associating clips with a dance genre. Now, it is important to point out that the shortest one-beat clip in the dataset is approximately 520 milliseconds, with most one-beat clips being closer to 750 milliseconds. This puts our one-beat clips above the established thresholds for identifying not only musical genre, but also title and artist for songs that a participant might already be familiar with. In the 4-bar condition, clips ranged in about the 11 to 13 second range. While most of the genres showed an upward trend in consensus with the data as longer clips were presented to participants, you'll notice that the reverse was observed for country two-step. As you can see, listeners started at approximately 70% agreement with the data, but by the 1-bar condition we see the agreement drop to around 50%. What this graph doesn't show is that the dance genre that listeners selected for the country two-step songs in the longer beat conditions was East Coast swing. What this hints at is that initially dancers are likely using timbral cues to narrow down the list of possible dances, and then using more complex musical features, in this case the rhythm is the most likely catalyst, to make a final determination. In conclusion, we hypothesized that dancers would need a minimum of one measure of music to make a determination of which dance genre is associated with a given musical selection, but that the need for more audio would quickly reach a ceiling after the 1-bar minimum was met. While we did find this, we found that while there is a leveling off of the rate of consensus between dancers, there was a significant difference between all beat length conditions. We also hypothesized that dancers would reach a greater degree of consensus when classifying the dance genre of monolithic songs compared to polylithic songs. Our model, however, did not support this claim. With that said, we are planning to conduct further testing using a greater number of songs per category to clarify our results. With regards to the second hypothesis, there are 2 caveats related to our data set that need to be mentioned. The first is that we did not source our songs from dance industry experts. Instead, we used a crowdsourcing approach that only considered playlists on Spotify. This does come with the risk of songs not being associated with dance genres in accordance with what the greater dance community would consider an appropriate association. The second is that the data set is incomplete. We have songs for 8 dance genres. In the greater dance community that includes, but is not limited to, ballroom, country, swing, and club dances, there are dozens of dance genres that can be considered. Improving our dataset so that it includes those genres is a project we are currently undertaking. References are provided for anyone who wishes to explore these ideas further. And with that, thank you for your time and attention. We should have a few minutes for any questions that you have.